and that he uses his organization to accomplish his will.
Yes, that's true. Sire, though, also, sister, you're not wrong. We don't do wrong answers here. So
just wait and see when I try. No, I was going to say we have to know that the basic teachings, right, we have to know the basic teachings. We have to be living in harmony with them, and we got to be telling others about them.
That's right. That's right. These are requirements before we can dedicate ourselves to Jehovah, correct? Sister, up front.
So we see how this is so different than a person, because you can walk into a church and say, I'm saved, I want to be saved, I want to get baptized, and immediately it can be done. But that is not done with Jehovah's Witnesses, because you have to know what you are doing before you take the steps of dedication and baptism.
Yes, in fact, there's a common practice with some organizations. What do with infants, right? Anybody know?
They spritz them.
Yeah, right? These three very important things are just non-existent, right? Brother?
We know that there are some who even baptize the dead.
Goodness, I didn't know that, but it's not hard to believe in this world that we're living in. So,
and I was thinking too, when we think about, you mentioned, how some organizations sprinkle that holy water on the infant child. The infant child doesn't know anything about the Bible. They were just born, right? We compare that to Jesus. Jesus was a grown man when he got baptized, right? So, just think about the seriousness of knowing Jehovah's word, dedicating our lives before we even get to that point, and teaching about it and applying those Bible laws and standards and principles in our lives before we even get to that point of dedication.
That Jehovah sees things happening against us that are taking place even in the dark. Now, the arrow that flies by day, what does that represent symbolically? Well, what it means is it represents activities that take place against us in the openness of broad daylight. Things such as lying propaganda and malicious slander. Verbal attacks, perhaps in our field ministry. Violent threats, again, perhaps in our field ministry. Threats can also come when we begin studying the Bible. And the violent threats might come from our own family members, our spouse, other loved ones, or friends. Even the flagrant misapplication of law in legal courts. Psalm 94:20 puts it, framing trouble in the name of the law against the innocent. So just two examples, our brothers and sisters in Russia and also in Eritrea in Africa. Now, when I was first putting this outline together, I think back in 2012, another arrow that flies by day was listed in the outline as false accusations. So this made me think, me, I always have a personal experience when I give a talk. So it made me harken back to when I was in high school in 10th grade. I was sitting there in a civics class, and the civics class was about to end. Everybody's just kind of waiting for the bell to ring. I'm sitting kind of toward the back of the classroom. But then all of a sudden I hear a guy at the front of the class say, "Oh yeah, those Jehovah's Witnesses, they play with snakes." And so I kind of perked up. I'm like, wow, did I just hear that? And the classmate behind me, he punches me in the back, says, "Hey man, they're talking about you." So I'm like, wow, I got to say something. And the guy that said it, 10th grade, he's got a full beard. I think he'd been held back a couple of times. He's known as the school bully. I'm like, he's going to beat me up after school. I can't let this slide though. So I mustered up the boldness and I said, "That's not true. Jehovah's Witnesses don't play with snakes." And he looked at me and says, "How do you know?" "Because I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses and we don't play with snakes." So about that time, the bell rang for class to change, but some classmates did come up to me and they were asking me about my beliefs, about our faith. And so I answered a few questions there quickly, brought some publications back the next day, and was able to place that with the classmates that came up to me to ask. So it ended up on 91:6. Well, this is a figurative pestilence that's prevalent among those living in the gloom of this morally and religiously diseased world today. Even well-meaning churchgoers in Christendom at their churches, they've become infected by this pestilence in the gloom because they've adopted the spread of demon-inspired pagan traditions and teachings, including man-made pagan traditions. You know, when we were doing the memorial invitation campaign a while back, you'd go by a church and they're getting ready for their Easter parade and advertising Easter egg drops from helicopters, those sorts of things. They're into Christmas, they're into Halloween. So, pagan traditions. But on the contrary, we as Christians, we enjoy spiritual light in abundance, don't we? So we're not fearful of this gloomy darkness that's prevalent in the world religiously. Is what that means. It assures us that God will sustain us in this wicked system when it's destroyed. Now, Jehovah's greatest rescue of all, that will occur during his great war of Armageddon when he vindicates his sovereignty and sanctifies his holy name. And those loyally serving God will be saved and satisfied by him with long life, as we mentioned, everlasting life. So picture this, friends. If your brothers will pull the last image up. Picture this. You're at a circus. You're with your family, your wife, your children. You're walking down the midway. Somebody runs through the circus and screams at the top of their lungs, "The lion has escaped! The lion has escaped!" Where would be the safest place to go? Where's the one place that you know the lion isn't? He's not in his cage, is he? You could get in his cage and lock the door and you'd be safe. Well, friends, the Bible says that Satan is roaming about. The devil is a roaring lion looking to devour someone. So where's the one place that Satan the devil isn't today? He's not in Jehovah's organization, is he? Friends, look at that picture. You get in Jehovah's organization, you close the door, and you will have found security in a dangerous world.
In a spiritual sense, there are literally millions of us who have experienced a spiritual healing as a result of being liberated from Babylon the Great. Previously, we might have been blinded by Babylon the Great's teachings like Trinity and hellfire, but now we see clearly the truths in the Bible. And in a similar way, we might not have been able to hear Bible prophecy showing where we are in the stream of time, but clearly now we hear and see that we are on the verge of literal healing physically as well as our spiritual healing.
Yes.